So I've wanted to tell this story for a while, because this happened probably a couple years ago, um, and I've been thinking a lot about being willing to see, being willing to look, and how, like I consider good listening as an excellent gift, right? And I think there is also ways that we can show I'm not afraid to see you. I'm not afraid to look. I'm not afraid to see all of it, you know? And that just in this kind of safe making way that shows like I'm not going to be approaching you and allowing, my ignorance to change my level of compassion and acceptance, and I'm not going to be reacting to you with disgust. And it's incredible when I have moments of knowing that I gave that, um, or have experienced that. And it's just like extraordinarily safe making behavior. And I hope the more I think about it and walk through it, I'll be able to speak to it and, understand a little bit more deeply. But anyway, I wanted to talk about that, and also like I think I started seeing the idea being spoken about more often about the fear of being seen, and that is something that I've had to really work on myself the last couple years and work through just a lot of like vulnerability and just like a sense of rawness and a sense of just like very much accepting and experiencing my vulnerability just walking around. And that was a skill that I had to learn, and there was so much trauma that I had to address and a lot of questions that I had to ask myself about, in order to get there, and to, I'd say it's semi comfortable now. It used to just be walks late at night, where I let myself, get to that place and I felt skinned and just walking down the street alone, it just, oof, it was hard. But anyway, that had been a focus of mine for a while, and then lately I've been thinking more about how important it is, and what a gift it is, and what a kind of gaze it is, when you approach in a way that I'm not going to be disgusted, I'm not going to be afraid of you, you know? Um, anyway, the story I wanted to tell a couple years ago, and this was probably early. This was kind of early in my transition, I'm pretty sure. I think I was like barely sort of starting to pass a little bit, probably not. Um, but I had gone to one of my favorite parks, and had been like on the paths that I frequent over there, and then had driven down, because it's a big place. I drove down to like where a shelter and a restroom was, so that I could use the restroom before I left. And um, and when I was there, I think I sat in my car and like had a snack for a minute first too. And it was just, it was a beautiful day. It was like, I think it was early summer. Um, but um, I was hearing something. I was looking around, and I watched like a middle aged guy who was differently abled. Well, actually, I do feel comfortable calling him disabled because he does need someone with him. I tend to say differently abled most of the time because that's what it is. But he is disabled, and and had dude probably like around my age or a little younger with him, and the disabled man, I don't remember any of their names now, but the older brother, because we'll get there. The older brother uh, was he's visually impaired, and like has like that like short slow shuffle, and but he kept um, what's the word for it? He kept like making exclamation sounds, and they were very loud, and they were like the same pitch every time, and and it wasn't any kind of distinguishable like verbalizations. It was mostly just sound. Um, and the younger brother was communicating with him and talking to him and like leading him to somewhere, and saying like, I know this, but we're gonna do this, and we're almost there or whatever. So I was around that, and I was like, I don't remember what I thought about it at the time. It probably kind of moved me at the time, just watching that rapport and watching the younger brother's gentleness. That's what it was that kind of struck me with him, because he was kind of like a big burly man, and ball cap and like tattoos all down his calves, and being so tender and attentive and intelligent to his older brother, as far as like knowing how to do that. And I was like, fuck, that's been his entire life. And but anyway, I had my snack, I went to the restroom, I left, and I think I don't remember if the older brother was on the swing. I know they're like over by the swing set. Where is my water? But so anyway, that happened, and then like literally like a few days or a week later, I was at the job that I was at then, and they came in, like the two brothers and their mom came in, and like this was probably a couple years after pretty much everyone stopped masking, and it wasn't an expected thing in restaurants anymore. Just to give you like a time frame for something that she tells me, but I recognized the two brothers. I realized they probably hadn't seen me at the park, and it was clear like that was their mom, and but we were talking through like food, like sensitivity stuff, and she ended up telling me that I think that was like the first time that they'd gone to a restaurant since before COVID. And I was like, what the fuck is happening in my life right now? Now honestly, I get experiences like that a lot, where things just kind of tie in like these like complex ways that have no fucking explanation, and they're beautiful and impactful and meaningful, and I'm glad that I'm starting to tell more stories about them. But so I was low-key kind of fucking honored after like having the experience of watching their report at the park. And I ended up like when like later in the meal, I ended up mentioning to them, it's like, hey, I think I saw you two at I told them the park name, like on this day last week, and I don't remember what I said other than that. I was like, I think I just said something. I didn't say anything about them. I think I just like commented on like what a nice day it was or whatever, and like it was one of the first times that I'd been to like that park this year or something like that. Just something general and pleasant, and but we ended up talking, and also the older brother, I think he got just really fucking overstimulated. They came in on a lunch, and it was quiet, There were like maybe two or three other tables in the restaurant while they were there. But the brother was like there was a clear alarm tone that started coming through, and it became kind of incessant, to the point that like the kitchen manager came out and he's like, is something happening out there? Is everything okay? And I was like, but anyway, they were getting ready to go, and I think the brothers were in the bathroom. And again, it's just kind of staggering to me to like watch this man and know like this has been your life. This has been your entire life. Um, but the mom and I were talking, and she was talking about going to parks, and she was talking about some group or some place that they were going for a while, that there were like lots of different kinds of people, and how included and welcome they always felt. Sorry. um, I'm realizing now how like little that meant to me then. Um, but you know what, when you're there. Um, but she was telling me about like that sense of inclusivity, that sense of being welcome, that sense of being allowed. And she looked at me and she said, something that I've realized is that people who are welcoming towards marginalized people have usually been marginalized themselves. And it was just like one of the first experiences, if not the first, of someone just like saying something very direct and very real language, and very, I see you and I'm not afraid of seeing you. And I've been like really emotional lately. All of my spring energy is coming up and it's been overwhelming. Um, but yeah, I really wanted to tell that story because that was a couple years ago. It was really impactful to me. And that came up when I was thinking about like I kind of want to talk about I kind of want to start telling stories like that of experiences that I've had, because they're really beautiful and meaningful, and I want to share them, and I also want them recorded, if nothing else for my own sake. Um, but yeah, just it was the first time someone had really kind of made it part of a conversation, because I was so used to not being able to really talk about it unless like that's what we were talking about. And it was the first time. It was one of the first times that like someone clearly, walked me to a point in order to walk me to a point, and left me there. And it was just really beautiful. I've always been really appreciative of that I got to interact with that family. Her words and those experiences have stayed with me. And yeah, it is a gift to not be afraid to look.